Yeah, okay. Still early. Yeah, I'll give you a call. Okay.
Any minute now. Any second now. There it is. All right. Welcome, council, welcome, staff, and welcome, members of the public, to tonight's regular council meeting, Tuesday, December 21st, 2021 at 6 p.m., the last council meeting of 2021. And this meeting is being transmitted electronically via council chambers located at 39 South Shore Road in Lake Cowichan, BC. So before we start this meeting, I'd just like to acknowledge this meeting is taking place virtually on the traditional unceded territories of Subasit, people of the lake, our local First Nations, where we live, work, and play happily as neighbors. And just a reminder also, before we call the meeting to order, that if you have a question, you can email it in or telephone call it in later at the meeting at the appropriate time, which will be announced. The telephone number is 250-749-6681, extension 102. Or you can email your question in at any time, and we'll get to it when we get to the question period at general@lakecowichan.ca. So just a reminder about that. So with that, I'd like to call this meeting to order at 6:01 and ask if there's any introduction of late items. See no hands. I do have a couple, and one of them is a joint topic, but we missed it by accident when the creation of this agenda. We said we were going to talk about the community health services gap analysis briefly tonight, and also the housing for the unhoused, whatever we want to do that. We do have a tour date scheduled. We can talk about that if you like. So that's one item under new business. And the other item under new business is a meeting format, virtual versus in person. As we all know, January 31st was the last day we agreed to meet virtually, but I think we need to have that discussion, see where it's going from here. All right, so if that's okay, I'd like to ask for approval of the agenda as amended. Moved by Councillor Sandhu, second by Councillor Austin. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3. Opposed? None that I can see. So that's that. Thank you very much. Motion passes. So next we have adoption of some minutes. Minutes from the regular meeting of council held on November 23rd, 2021. Looking for a mover. Moved by Councillor Sandhu, seconded by Councillor McGonigal. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None. Motion carried. Thank you. Minutes of the special meeting of council held on November 30th, 2021. Anybody like to move those minutes? Moved by Councillor Sandhu, seconded by Councillor Austin. Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Business and unfinished business, none. Delegations, none. We would go to correspondence in the Ministry of Municipal Affairs regarding 2021 regional meetings. Hope you all had a chance to read that. That captures pretty much the conversation that or most of it that I described in a previous meeting. So that's just the follow-up from the minister. Councillor Sandhu.
Thank you. I just had a question regarding the on that report, the vaccine mandate for elected officials and staff, and just noting that Victoria, Vancouver, Kamloops, and the CRD, they all implemented this. So I'm just wondering, are more governments wanting to implement this sort of mandate of being vaccinated? Like, has there been discussions at any of our local?
I believe the CAOs in the area have been in contact on a regular basis on this. So Joseph, do you have any? Mr. Fernandez,
Yes,
I'm sorry.
the CAOs have been in contact recently. In fact, we've had a series of meetings, and we're not quite sure how to proceed with this issue because there's no legal basis for mandating it.
Yeah.
So each community is on its own. So that's where we're at, and we're still struggling with it.
Okay. Can I ask one more question? So with the like the city of Victoria, it was 98% of the union supported the mandate. So would it have to, something like that, have to go to the union for them to approve?
I can speak for the union, I think, because they would go along with whatever mandate we have in place.
Yeah.
At least that's my understanding of it from recent
Okay.
conversations I've had with the union.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Anybody else on that letter? Then we can move along to the next letter from the Minister of Municipal Affairs regarding grant opportunities. Mr. Fernandez, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, I can indeed. We are looking at the upgrades to the wastewater treatment plant. We have delegated that task to WSP. They were involved with the previous studies. When we did the first phase, it was called Opus then, and they did the estimates and on which we made the application for the first phase. So the same engineers are now involved with coming up with the updated costs, the Class D estimates for phase 2 and 3. So once we get that, in the January meeting, I'll bring in a resolution for council approval because the closing date for the application is January 26th. And we will have something for council to look at prior to that or at that meeting.
Thank you, sir. Any questions on that? Okay, then we can move along to item number 3, Callum Matthews, Tourism Vancouver Island regarding new partnership agreement. It seems we had a conversation at one of our meetings at some point, and then all of a sudden, lo and behold, in my inbox, I got this letter, so I thought it was very timely that arrived. And if you'll notice in there, Mr. Matthews talks about coming to give us a delegation presentation. So sounds interesting. Councillor Sandhu, please.
Thank you. Just a question, I think through to Councillor McGonigal. Is this service, regional service, not paid for through the CVRD, like through Tourism Cowichan? Like so much per year under a function?
As far as I'm aware, yes, but I would have to look through the budget and get back to you on that one for positive.
Okay. So there'll be a presentation in the new year. Is that what the next step is then regarding this?
Well, I would love to recommend to staff that they reach out and arrange a delegation at some point in the new year.
Okay.
If that's something everybody would like to do. I know that we did speak of it, and I think it's a new arrangement, different than what it was when it first started, that now Tourism Vancouver Island has sort of taken over the role, I think, of leadership of Tourism Cowichan. Go ahead, Councillor Sandy.
So my understanding is that Tourism Cowichan has contracted this out to Tourism Vancouver Island. So they're the contractor.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think it's important we get the full picture, exactly what they can, and a lot of people lost steps here. So
yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor McGonigal, go ahead.
And just so we don't confuse this with the presentation from a previous meeting on the MRDT that we spoke of, I did speak to Mr. O'Riordan from the CVRD on a possibility of a presentation to council on that. So there's an understanding of all councillors on what the MRDT renewal is about. The online format for MRDT was suggested by the province to be utilized possibly for affordable housing, and that was a contentious issue. So that also will probably be brought forward in that discussion. The majority of the MRDT was implemented for tourism, and the majority of the directors thought that that's where it should stay.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, any more questions, comments? And Mr. Fernandez, you will reach out and try and arrange a delegation sometime early in the new year,
I will do that, yes.
whenever is appropriate between Mr. Matthews. Okay. Then we can move along to reports now. We have council and committee reports. And the first report is the Finance Administration meeting. Councillor McGonigal.
Thank you very much, Mayor Day. I would like to move the minutes of the Finance Administration Committee meeting held Tuesday, December 7th, electronically and transmitted via the council chambers at 39 South Shore Road with the following recommendation. That the committee recommend that the request of the Lake Cowichan Fire Department for financial assistance and or donation for the restoration of, actually, I believe I have to forego moving these. I was tardy.
Yeah. Okay.
So disregard my previous comment.
And I was chairing, so
Let's move to
How
my
about-
vice chair,
yeah.
Councillor Sandu. to
Councillor
read them out.
Sandu. Thank you.
I have laryngitis.
No excuses.
Except I don't
Well-
have it in front of me, so. I've
Yeah,
gotta-
that's okay. That's okay.
Okay.
Take your time.
Sorry. Moved by Councillor Sandu, second by Councillor Bomaka, that the committee recommend the request of the Lake Cowichan Fire Department for financial assistance and or donation for the restoration of engine number 1 be referred to 2022 budget for consideration. That the building and, am I on the right one? Sorry. Yes. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Just the two
That's
fire
okay.
reports, I think.
The two fire department reports.
Fire Okay, so sorry. That the committee recommend approval of the Lake Cowichan Fire Department's incident report in the amount of $8,876.04 for October 2021. That the committee recommend approval of the Lake Cowichan Fire Department's incident report in the amount of $10,560.42 for November 2021. That the committee recommend a leave of absence for Councillor McGonigal for meetings held this day. Do I do those ones too?
I don't know.
Whatever. And notice of motions, Mayor Day requests that the following 2 items be placed on the agenda for regular meeting of council to be held December 21st, 2021. 1, community health services gap analysis, and 2, housing for the unhoused.
All right. That about covers them. Okay, great. That was moved by Councillor Sandu, seconded by Councillor McGonigal, because he was there at the end. And he's in the minutes. So, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None. Motion carried. Thank you very much, Councillor Sandu. So now we can move along to Public Works and Environmental Services. Councillor Bomaka.
Thank you very much. I'd like to move the minutes of the Public Works and Environmental Services Committee meeting held and transmitted electronically via council chambers located at 39 South Shore Road, Lake Cowichan on Tuesday, December the 14th of 2021. And with one notable correction, please, on public relations 9D, to have it read that Councillor Vomaca advised that the collection of Christmas cards for a local resident, Crystal Mayo, can be dropped off by the public to her store, Lorna's Emporium, as I did not make a statement as to her medical conditions. So I would like that to be removed. And with that, that is my report.
Okay, we have that moved and seconded by Councillor Sandu as amended. Any further discussion? All those in favor? And opposed? See none, the motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we can move to Parks, Recreation and Culture. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to move the Parks, Recreation and Culture Committee meeting of December 14th held electronically as presented.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Vomaca. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor and opposed? Motion carries. I'll never forget those days at the CVRD table with 12 or 14 people on it. And you just look out into the, when somebody's got their hand up and go, what the heck is your name?
Yeah.
So I always made sure I had the map in front of me from then on. All right. Then we can move along to strategic planning. And Councillor Austin, could I indulge upon you to?
Thank you. I'd like to move the minutes of the Strategic Planning Committee meeting held December 7th, 2021 electronically as presented.
And thank you very much. Seconded by Councillor Vomaca. You got your hand up first. Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? And opposed? None. Motion carried. All right. Couch and Lake Recreation Commission. There are no minutes yet, but we did meet last Thursday and it was the budget meeting. And I will just bring that up quickly because there was a couple interesting things that came up during that meeting. Basically, it was approved for the rental free for the Yubo and Honeymoon Bay recreation volunteer groups, so they can have free use of their halls for their meetings. And also moving along, there was a considerable discussion on the recladding of the arena that was going to take place at the time of the big renovation, but that was put off due to cost prohibitive things. So interestingly enough, that was put forward at about 400,000 at that time. The price has now gone up to 1.5 million. So with the advice of CVRD finance staff, it looks like that they'll be able to pull that off in 2023 with some short-term borrowing and taking most of the money out of surplus, capital surplus. So yeah, so that's going to happen. And then there was a draft budget for review. It started off at a 0.76 increase with the supplemental items, which included a $65,000 expenditure for exercise equipment for a fitness studio in the upstairs multi-purpose room in the first section. So, and then an electric ice resurfacer. We can't call it a Zamboni. Well, we could have if we wanted to, I guess. And reassessment of the condition of the assets of that building. They have to do that every few years, and it helps keep the asset management on track for that facility. So all three of those items were included as supplemental items, and Director Morrison came up with some creative ways to come up with the 0.015 tax decrease by putting off some borrowing for a year or so, and taking a few dollars out of the operational surplus to do some stuff. And so, yeah, so there'll be a tax decrease. The Recreation Commission approved that, and of course it'll go to the board, and they can go over it with a fine-tooth comb and approve it or not. Okay, so that was that. And that was the highlights of it. They were able to come up with a budget decrease at the end of the day because of the lack of activity during the COVID that saved them some money with staffing and stuff. So go ahead, Mr. Fernandez.
Your worship, I just wanted to know if the CBRD staff were present and if they had any input into the process.
Yes, I've forgotten their names because I don't see them very often, but we had 2 members of the finance department from the CBRD, as well as Mr. John Elzinga, the manager of community services, and Mr. Jim Wakeham. I don't know what his title is these days, but manager facilities and maintenance, I believe, in transit. So yes, they were all there in person. And it was also the Christmas dinner for that group. Follow up to that, Mr. Fernandez?
I just wondered if they had any input in into the process.
Yes, they did. Yes, there was Director Morrison put forward a proposal, and they put forward a different version of that. And at the end of the day, the commission accepted Director Morrison's proposal as the way forward. But I believe that staff will probably look at it a little deeper before it gets to the board and maybe have further recommendation. I'm not sure. Yeah. Okay. Any further questions on that one? Okay. Then we'll move along to the Vancouver Island Regional Library. Councillor Romaka.
Oh, thank you. Councillor Austin attended by Zoom in my absence. And then I have 2 other updates if she was not aware of them, but I'll let her speak first if you don't mind.
Councillor Austin.
Okay, thank you. The meeting was held by Zoom on November 27th. Lots of great discussions regarding service and policy levels, service to the rural Indigenous population, planning for the future, and a revised board policy regarding fees and charges. No charge fees for children. It will be carried over to everyone with some discretion. Replacement fee for books that are out of circulation for over 120 days was discussed because this can be a burden on libraries. So they're going to look at each case individually on that. Homebound volunteer delivery services provided in some areas for those who can't leave home. So I'd like to learn a bit more about that. That might be an interesting thing to do around here. In-depth financials were discussed. Souk will be the next facility to come on board, and they invited all board members to attend the opening in the new year. No date was set as yet. Masset needs some work still, and they are looking at that at this present time. Catchment areas were discussed, as some areas are paying for libraries when there aren't any within a close proximity. Online services are okay for some, but not for all. People do like to go and socialize and be in a library when possible with COVID restrictions. It was noted that many rural areas are underserved. Apparently there are 35,000 residents in rural areas with no library at present in BC. Nominations are required for new board members, and a committee was discussed. January 7th will be the last day to put your name forward for nominations. Lots of things are going on at our library. There are fun crafts for the holidays online through Creative Bug, virtual book club for teens, adult winter reading club will be starting soon. A new Indigenous collection of books will be coming as soon as well. And library cards make good stocking stuffers, as we always say. The next meeting will be the AGM in January, and I don't recall them giving me the exact date, but I think it's the 4th Saturday.
Thank you very much, Councillor Austin. So Councillor Romaka, you have additional
Yes, thank you.
information.
So the one released December the 10th was regarding COVID vaccinations for staff. Thank you for reaching out about Vancouver Island Regional Library staff vaccination requirements. All rural employees have been encouraged and supported to become vaccinated based on the guidance we have received from the BC Provincial Health Office and WorkSafe BC with respect to COVID-19 Virl has implemented numerous layers of protection for employees and library staff alike. We are confident in our communicable disease plan, and our branches remain safe spaces. I have the other edition, and it says that they are giving the Virl staff members until early February to become fully vaccinated as a job requirement. And the second one goes along with what Councillor Austin reported, and it came out today, Tuesday, December 21st. Barriers continue to fall at Vancouver Island Regional Library. Starting in January, fines on all young adult materials will be permanently removed, and the current moratorium on adult material fines will extend for another year. So that's good that they're moving forward, because not everybody can pay those fines. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Omaka and Councillor Austin again. So thank you. Advisory Planning Commission, Councillor Austin.
Thank you. We had two meetings since our last meeting. November 24th, the APC had Keith Lawrence and Kate Miller from the CVRD. They were a delegation at that meeting, presented their climate change and risk management strategy. Further revisions to the subdivision bylaw were discussed, and rental housing was discussed, and the municipality's right to protect rental housing. The December 16th meeting, the final draft of the revision to subdivision works and services bylaw was presented, except for the drawings, which will come later. It was reviewed by the commission and will be sent to council for approval. Dog park location and need was discussed at length. Centennial Field at the old tennis court area was considered, along with a list of items required for a dog park. I mentioned myself that a dog park was not in our strategic plan, but if funds became available in the near future, it would most likely be considered. It would be up to the council to make that decision. Our next meeting is Thursday, January 27th at 4 p.m. on Zoom.
Thank you very much for that. Any questions for Councillor Austin? Okay, we'll move along to the Community Forest Co-op, Councillor McGonigal.
Thank you very much, Mayor Day. The executive of the Community Forest Co-op met with two organizations in the community who made presentations as delegations for possible funding opportunities in the future. One was the Kinsman on the Duck Pond project. They presented to the executive committee with some options for sponsorship of that project. Each of the two had an hour to make their presentation to the executive committee, and further that will move to the finance committee for some consideration, clarification, and perhaps some questions back to those two delegations for just clarifying some points. The second was the Cowichan Lake Elder Care Society. I recused myself from those discussions and that presentation, as I am on the board of Cowichan Lake Elder Care Society. But again, they made their presentation for upwards of an hour on the possibility of funds coming forward in the new year from the Cowichan Lake Community Forest Co-op. We will hear from the Finance Committee on their recommendations to the board in the new year, and then move forward with whatever the board does decide. Again, at those discussions, I will recuse myself from any discussions in the Cowichan Elder Care Society portion of that, not to put anyone into harm's way by staying in those discussions. So we will see what comes forward from the Finance Committee, and I will report once they have made a decision and the board has endorsed or not.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Councillor McGonigal. Great to see that there's still an opportunity for people to possibly get funding through that group. So it's awesome. Awesome value that can be added to the community. So community outreach, or sorry, we're going to other reports, Cowichan Valley Regional District Board meeting, Councillor McGonigal again. Okay.
Where to start? So Committee of the Whole was the first to come up. Oh, now I gotta get into that, sorry. Too many things on the go here. Bear with me. So that was the initial meeting of the Committee of the Whole. That is chaired by Director Sebring, and that was December 8th. For that one, it was looking at possible resolutions to Vancouver and coastal communities. A number were considered, and they will be forwarded to the appropriate staff member for vetting and investigation, whether they have been endorsed or brought forward previously. Also, a report from Parks and Trails on active transportation contribution request for the Allenby Road improvements through Cowichan Tribes. There's some road safety projects that are going on currently with the water main project that Cowichan Tribes is doing along Miller Road and Allenby Road, etc. So there was a request for a partnership within that one. And those were the only two in that one. The hospital board meeting was next. And it is the whole board that is also members of the hospital board. So at that one, the finance division brought forward the Cowichan District Hospital provisional budget. And also it was adopted. And in that, there was considerable funds put forward towards the new hospital. There has been $10 million a year set aside for the region's contribution of the new hospital. So you will see on the CBRD website when the budget becomes finalized, a huge number that's going forward into the district hospital from that reserve. The board meeting was next. And again, chair for this year is Director Yanni DiNardo. And she chaired the first meeting. And that was December 8th as well. Regional Services Committee recommendations, the last recommendations from that one came in, and it was to approve a report on the Regional District of Nanaimo Growth Strategy Amendment on the industrial lands south of Nanaimo River on Trans-Canada Highway, that it be referred back to the Nanaimo staff with a request for information on impacts to the aquifer. Because that is adjacent to Area H, there was some consideration for input from the regional district. Also that a development of a workforce housing strategy fund with 50,000 coming from general government be approved. So I noted that the hospital will be coming online. A new high school will be built and the RCMP building. And there's considerable shortage of housing for the workforce. So they're looking at a strategy to accommodate the housing for those who will be working on those projects. Also, that staff prepare a report on options for implementation of Parks Memorial Donation Program. There have never been a Parks Memorial Program within the regional district as a policy, so they're working forward on a policy for that. Also, meeting schedule for next year was brought forward. The MRDT was discussed again, and at that time I requested that perhaps Mr. O'Riordan make a presentation to this council for clarification on some questions. And of course, at this time of year, you have to do the revenue anticipation borrowing bylaw, which was endorsed just as a means before the taxes actually do come in. If that is needed, that bylaw has to be passed. There was some zoning amendments brought forward for the South Cowichan zoning amendment bylaw. And again, those are just for electoral directors. And then the special corporate services meeting was where the budget overview came for initial discussion. And along with that came a report from the acting chief administrative officer on the 2022 supplemental budget requests. So these supplementals are brought forward and prioritized by staff as to what tier they are, whether high priority or low, and then those are brought forward to the board for consideration or denial. So this was just the initial overview to have a look at it. It has been published on the CVRD website. If you want to have a look at that and what the impacts are, that has been published there. It's not going to remain as it is, I'm sure. There will be considerable discussion moving forward on not only the budget, but the supplemental requests as well. And then there was some talk about the from storm damage that we had in November on the trails, on property and infrastructure. Considerable damage within the Trans-Canada Trail and the Cowichan Valley Trail that do need a lot of work. And it will be some time and a lot of money to look at considering those approvals. So with that, I will leave it there for now. Look forward to the committee of the whole on the budget discussions moving forward.
Thank you very much, Councilor McGonigal. So the Memorial Parks Reserve Fund caught my attention. Your comments does that, the first thing that came to mind is that something that might look like it might fit in municipalities as well? Would be at this point, or is it too early to tell?
Along the lines of electoral areas for the placement of memorial benches.
Oh, okay.
There is no policy currently on the placement or how to accommodate those within either community parks or regional parks. So they're looking for a staff report to come back on a considered policy.
Okay, thank you. All right, any more questions, Councillor Austin?
Just a question to Councillor McGonigal through you. The south side of the Trans-Canada Trail, like ours leading out of town, were there any washouts there? I only noticed the ones on the other.
I think there was one, I can't remember the correct address. I will get into the parks agenda there and I will forward that to you after the meeting.
Okay.
With all the damages along the trail and the identified funds that would be needed to fix those. So I will do that right after the meeting then.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Any more questions or comments for Councilor McGonigal? All right. So now we can go to the Community Outreach Team Committee. Councillor Austin.
Thank you. There was no meeting in December due to the giving out of the Christmas hamper. Gift certificates and gift cards would have been on the same day that we usually meet. I just want to note that the food bank also provided much needed hampers this month when they don't normally do that. So there's been a lot of really good stuff going on for the people in need. And we're very thankful to have these people in our community. So I want to thank them personally and for all those people in need. Our next meeting will be January 20th at 9 a.m. on Zoom.
Thank you very much, Councillor Austin. All right, I can move along now to our Cowichan. Councillor Sandhu.
Thank you. There was no meeting in December. Our next meeting is January 13th, 2022.
All right, thank you. Then we can go to Cowichan Watershed Board.
And there was no meeting in December, and our next meeting is January 31st, 2022.
All right, okay.
But I would like to, the Cowichan Lake River Stewardship Society, our next meeting is January 3rd. So I'd like to start bringing back part of this, the Watershed Board and the River Stewardship Society. I'd like to kind of bring back forward at our regular meeting a little more on the river stewardship, just if there's anything that impacts the town.
Okay.
if that's okay.
Yeah, we can figure something out for that for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it for reports now, except for staff reports. And the first one is the Chief Administrative Officer regarding effectiveness of current governance structure. So, Mr. Fernandez.
Well, there's nothing more to add to what I've written here, other than to say that this report was prepared as a result of the discussions that took place at the finance and administration meeting, and I thought I'd just drop some discussion points for council to consider. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay. So I've looked at this and reflected a bit on it and done a little bit of reading myself and looked at other municipalities, as I said, at finance and admin, and saw that it could be a more productive way for us to consider it, having meetings, and so I'm just going to say right off the hop that I'd love to recommend that we move to a committee of the whole, and this is for discussion, meeting the second week of the month, and then regular council at the fourth week. And that we put all our current committee titles within that committee of the whole, and that each councillor would chair one meeting, the whole meeting, and then it would rotate through all of council and then start at the top again. It could be alphabetically, it could be whatever. Those who wouldn't feel comfortable chairing those meetings would be fine if they just wanted to say pass on that and things like that. But that's what I would like to put forward tonight, and then the agenda setting committee and staff would have to work very hard on putting items on the agenda, say off our strategic plan and stuff that promote some good discussion in those meetings, and not just carry on doing reports from staff on what they did that month as far as, cleaning ditches and repairing campsites and things like that, and just get into the more meat and potatoes of policy and things that we're actually supposed to be doing, which was mentioned in this report a bit too. That's our main function. So I'll just leave it at that, and hopefully there's some discussion here, and we can see if that's something that there's an appetite for. Councilor McGonigal, go ahead.
Well, I'd like to see us at least try committee of the whole, and it doesn't matter if one person chairs or it rotates. To me, I don't live and breathe by chairing any particular committee, but if someone wants an opportunity, Councillor Sandu, to chair a meeting, I would certainly suggest that is useful for time management, for learning policy and procedures. It is very helpful to chair and try to watch the whole room and get an idea of people's input. So I would suggest in the new year that we implement a committee of the whole on one Tuesday, and council on an alternate Tuesday. But considering that we're moving into budgets, that we leave those other opportunities for budget discussions moving forward, so that we can accommodate those important discussions as well, because they will be separate from the committee of the whole and then brought back for consideration and adoption. So that would be my input to move forward in the new year with those 2 meetings a month, and then leave the other ones afforded for other special meetings as required.
Thank you very much, and good input to Councilor McGonigal, because I thought about that too, that the budgets should probably be separate, and we could call that a special committee of the whole meeting for budget discussions, and that's the only item on those. So yeah, and take it out of the regular business. So yeah, that's cool. Councillor Austin, go ahead.
Do we need a motion to do this starting in January, or is this something that you're just going to go ahead and do? Or I think it's a great idea to have the committee of the whole on the second Tuesday and the regular on the fourth, and leave the others free for budget. So I'm just wondering if you need a motion to change this now so it's all legal, or?
Mr. Fernandez, I know that the mayor can strike up committees at will, but I don't want to do that without this consultation process. And if a motion's necessary or if it's direction to staff, that's
Yeah,
what
either
do you
way
think?
works. I mean, it's helpful if council is on board on it, so.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I'd sooner see it as a motion. But is there any more input, just so that if we're gonna get started on this in January, that we hear from everybody? But I also see no problem with fumbling through our first go round at it and see how it works. And there's nothing to say if it doesn't work for us. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Sandhu.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm on board with trying this, and I just had one question. I didn't understand what the meaning of minutia. Minutia? I'm just throwing that out there. How do you pronounce it? I Googled it, so I wanted to hear you pronounce it.
That's right.
Minutia?
Minutia.
Minutia.
It was a new word I learned last week, and so thank you. It broadened my horizons.
Does it mean minute details?
Small, trivial, unimportant details.
Okay, yeah. It's got a Latin root for something.
I thought it was a typing error at first. I thought he meant minute, and I'm like, well, what's minute got to do with that? So I had to. Thank you. A good
I
report.
like to use new words.
And that being said, also it's a good time to bring up that Councillor Sandhu will take over the role of deputy mayor in January, 1st of January. And could you give some thought, please, Councillor Sandhu, on whether and how, if you would be available for agenda setting sessions, or whether you would like to pass that off to somebody else, or whatever. I'll be reaching out to you for input in the next few days, possibly, and we'll discuss that. Okay, because that's going to be the most important part of getting this off on the right foot, is putting the right items, getting the right items on the agenda. Go ahead, Councillor McGonigal.
I think it is important that we endorse it through a motion, so that Joseph has an opportunity to set the schedule for next year.
Yeah.
I think we have to publish that for the first meeting. So
Yeah.
I would move that this council move forward with a committee of the whole meeting on the second Tuesday, and council meeting on the fourth Tuesday. And I'll leave it at that.
All right.
Clean, gold star.
Yeah, it is actually. And the details will be looked after through staff. So we have a whole bunch of seconders, and I'll go to Councillor Sandhu on it then. As a seconder, any more discussion? All right, then I'll call the question. All those in favor? And opposed? None. Motion carried. Thank you. And thank you for the report, Mr. Fernandez. Okay, next we can move to the number 2 application for a development permit for 42 Savoy Road, Lot 16, Block 7, Section 5, Renfrew District Plan 1750. And is the proponent of this looking to call in, Mr. Fernandez?
He is indeed. So if you bear with me.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Plant is online, so go ahead.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for putting this forth.
All right. Joe, could you ask him to introduce himself quickly?
Yeah. Can you introduce yourself, Mr. Plant?
Hello, it is Kyle Plant, Plant Homes, Plant Developments. I'm looking at 42 Savoy, doing a house with a suite. We're in the steep slope for a development permit, and we have stairs going down on the left side to accommodate for the slope for the access to the suite.
Okay. Is that everything you'd like to say at this time, Mr. Plant?
Yes, thank you.
All right, so then I'll turn it back to council for any questions or comments to the proponent. Council McGonigal.
Or more through to staff. Can you just enlighten us on the DPA 2 classification, please?
I can indeed. It's a natural hazard lands development permit area. So this is a slope of more than 10%. So for that reason, an application for a development permit is required before construction of a residence can, or any building can commence. And that's why this has come to council.
Okay, and again, here we are dealing with the DPA that the approving officer should be. I just struggle with council having to make these decisions when it should be the planner and the professionals. As you say, we are here to do policy, bylaws, etc., and we're still tied to this. So just bear with me. I'm just voicing my frustration. But a question on a previous approval within a DPA that came forward with silt filtration entities within it. Is there a need for that within this? I didn't see that in the report. Or if James has even had a consideration of that.
You want to answer that, Kyle?
We have Lukowicz Engineering involved for geotechnical, and definitely we take all precautions. The lot is extremely long, so we definitely have a lot of protection area for sure.
And just to follow up, if I may, I'm not sure the proximity to Beaver Creek from there, but there would be a flow going east towards Beaver from the top of Savoy. Would that be correct?
I think it's at the bottom.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you for the questions and thank you for clarification, staff. Joe, did you or Mr. Fernandez?
Yeah, I did.
Anything?
This development generated a fair bit of interest from the neighbors. So we've had people come in and look at the development, and they have not provided any written input or verbal input of any kind other than reviewing the file.
Okay.
Can I make one comment on that?
Yes, please, Mr. Sandhu.
Kyle, on the bottom end of that, we do have some drainage. So if your engineers could have a good look at that, so we don't get silt into some of our drainage system down there.
I apologize. That was I could not hear the question. It was breaking up. Can you please repeat it?
Kyle, what I was saying at the bottom end of that lot, there is some drainages that we would like some particular attention by the engineers or whoever's doing your design there, just so we don't get silts into the drainage system there.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, it actually starts on our neighbor's lot. We just get the kind of the toe of the start of that, and we will definitely the lot is extremely long, so we won't be anywhere near it for sure, but we will take all precautions necessary to protect that, definitely.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilor McGonigal.
Just one final question through to the CAO. If this does get approved, would it go to public hearing?
No.
The DPAs are just reside within here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other hands, so we do have a recommendation here that the approval by council of a development permit to the owner of lot 16, block 7, section 5, Renfrew District, situated in Couch and Lake District, Plan 1750 PID 000057401, with the following conditions. Number 1, a geotechnical assessment shall be completed to the satisfaction of the town's building inspector prior to issuance of a building permit. Number 2, no retaining walls over 2.0 meters in height shall be permitted. And number 3, prior to the issuance of a building permit, any retaining walls and structures higher than 1 meter must be designed by a professional geoscientist or structural engineer to the satisfaction of the town's building inspector and must be located entirely on the parcel. There's a recommendation, Mr. Fernandez.
Yeah, you may want to add the fourth one, which was addressed by Mr. Sandhu in terms of the silt protection. And I think it would be useful to include that.
And number 4, that any downhill drainage that is property of the town shall be protected. Okay, so that'll be added in. All right, thank you very much. All right, so that's a recommendation moved by Councillor Sandhu, second by Councillor Austin. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Plant, for being on the line for clarification.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and town staff. And Merry Christmas, everybody. I'm looking forward to building back in my neighborhood.
Okay.
All right. Thank you and Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. So just to further to Councilor McGonigal's comments, do other municipalities approve DPAs as well, or are we the last known survivor of this?
They do, yeah. It's something that I think, based on what Councilor McGonigal suggested, it's not been delegated to staff, so we may want to look at that down the road.
Okay.
And so staff can handle it.
Something to be discussed in the Finance Administration section of the new Committee of the Whole.
Okay, yes.
All right. Councilor McGonigal, go ahead.
And just clarification through the province, whether it be through the Community Charter or Local Government Act, whether that is allowed. It could be accommodated within there that council has to make the decision on DPAs. I don't know every line in those, but just some sort of to remove it from a political standpoint, I think is important, that it be just those who have the authority and the expertise to make that decision, in my view. But all good.
Yep, no, good point. So, all right, so now we can move along to number 3, contract planner regarding the official community plan amendment to support agriculture at AB Greenwall school site. Mr. Fernandez.
Yeah, this is basically a requirement for an amendment to the OCP, which would recognize the property at AB Greenwell as an ALR site. And so that is something that the people at ALC have requested. They want us to do this. In fact, it's almost being directed. So in order to accommodate our request for getting a non-farm use on that property, it would be the best way to go. But if council, I don't think all of council is on board with that. So I will just leave it at that.
Got Councillor Sandhu, then Councillor McGonigal. Go ahead, Councillor Sandhu.
Just reading the notes. So we've been advised by the executive director of the commission that such a course of action will be seen in a positive light. Had they ever requested in the past that it go on our OCP plan? And why now? Like what is the reason now?
Well, the executive director has basically indicated that she was surprised that we don't have it recognized as an ALR. So she thought it would be advisable for us to amend the OCP to reflect that. And you're right, it's never been asked of us before. And it just, I guess, it's always the first time.
Like, I'm in favor of this. It's just, in my opinion, just a little questionable as to why at this time that, we're being kind of strongly encouraged to put this into our plan. So that's all I have to say on it.
Yeah, and if I had a crystal ball, not that that falls into place for any of this, I would say that because we instigated the conversation of, of the possible gaining ownership of that at some point in the future, that I guess they're asking that we put all the ducks in a row. Given that we were denied once and then denied the second time, that this is the best route, I guess, for the recommendation. That if we get it, we can go to that non-conforming use. So, Council McGonigal, go ahead.
I think the important part to remember is that until we initiated the possibility of accommodating that within the town's land base, nobody knew it was in the ALR. There was someone within the community who felt that it resided within that. And now that that has been identified, it's important that the official community plan acknowledge that there is ALR, whether it's class 1 or class 9. I don't think you're going to grow any students there anymore, but sorry, that's an agriculture pun. But it is important that the designation be in the OCP. As for the non-farm use, that can be discussed later, should we decide that that's the route the council wishes to take. But that would be the only option if it does reside within the official community plan as agricultural land reserve. So I would go along with at least identifying it within the OCP and then move forward with whatever possibilities we think might be appropriate.
Okay, I see some consensus building in the room here. So, Mr. Fernandez, do you prefer this as direction to staff to start the paperwork, or
The council motion would be more.
motion?
appropriate.
All right. Who's got some words? Councillor Austin.
I'll just make the motion to put this in our OCP as a ALR land and whatever other words you think we need.
Well said.
That's the best I can do.
I'm sure Mr. Fernandez can fill in those blanks
Yeah.
for us. Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Bomaka.
I was just seconding the motion.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
I do have a question though, if we can, before we take the vote.
Go ahead.
I'm a little confused that legally it is part of the agricultural land reserve. It's not in our OCP. They're asking us to put it in our OCP as agricultural land reserve. And then what's confusing me is that we're asking now to use the existing building for public works and a training facility, as well as access to a new development. And I'm just wondering whether this hinders our application now, because we're basically stating now that we know that it's an agricultural land reserve. That's where my confusion is. So if somebody can help me with that.
Okay, so moved and seconded with that comment and Mr. Fernandez clarification.
Clarification, this is the route we were advised to take by the ALC. They said this is the only way we can do it. And other communities have done that. Midway, for example, and after recognition, they were able to use a portion of the properties for non-farm use.
Right, and maybe helpful in clarification too is that we're in the OCP, it's not going to say that we're using the building and we're going to have a fire training center there, is it? It's just going to say that it's ALR.
And
right.
It's still going to say ALR, but portions of it would be non-farm use for the purposes of municipal
okay.
works and services.
Okay. All right. So, Councillor Sandhu, go ahead.
Sorry, just one more question. So us putting this into our OCP, then we're showing good faith. So in return for that, then we really hopefully shouldn't have any issues with what our plans are in our request, in our future request, that us putting this in our OCP isn't going to hinder us being able to have this as a non-farm use application where they're not just going to turn us down flat. I know there's no guarantees, but I just want to make sure that we're doing what's also right for the town, and we're going to get something in return for it, what our needs are.
Councilor McGonigal.
Once this is placed within the OCP as identified as ALR, a separate application for non-farm use would be made, whether it's for access to a certain subdivision that may have been discussed as a non-farm use, or as a public works building perhaps, or a training center, is up to us to make that application. We haven't identified specifically what it would be, but by applying for a non-farm use within the ALR, that would be the consideration for the commission to make. That's not to suggest that it would be a carte blanche just because we placed it in the OCP, that it would be approved. It would still be subject to the Land Commission's debate and clarification and justification of that non-farm use.
Go ahead, Councilor Sandhu.
And that's my point to the previous comments is what are we, for the town of Lake Cowichan and us doing this, putting this, what are we, say they turned us down on everything else and non-farm use, then what does that mean for, because it's then in our OCP? Like right now it's not, because just how it was basically on paper years and years ago put in the ALR, many people didn't know that that's what it was. So that's just my question is, if we do approve this, and I will support this, but I do have reservations that down the road when we do our request letter that they're going to, it could be just no. So that's my only concern is, what are we getting for putting this into our OCP?
All right. And maybe when I'm listening and looking at this, I'm saying to myself, well, they trump us by the fact that it's in the ALR, and they're not, so far have not been willing to remove it. So I guess by us putting it in our OCP, it still doesn't change the fact that they have the trump card. So, but they're suggesting that a new process could happen, as Councilor McGonigal said, an application could be made after that. So in good faith, we recognize that because they don't want to take it out now, currently. So I don't know if that puts you at ease at all, but we're also identifying what we want to use it for in the OCP as well, too. Correct, Mr. Fernandez?
Yeah, even if we don't take it out or show it as an ALR, we will never, they will not, the province will not take it out of the ALR. So they,
Okay.
and as you said, they trump us.
And you're right, there's no guarantees. So Councilor McGonigal?
Well, I think it's important that the OCP be specific. It is the guiding document on our development and future aspects moving forward, that it actually identifies all land classes. Whoever overlooked it, whether it was a bureaucrat or whoever, for us to clarify it within our OCP, at least as a guiding document, I think is important, regardless of whether it comes out as non-conforming farm use in a separate application is moot. The OCP at least identifies that whoever negated to classify that, we now have the classification through the province that we should put within our official community plan.
Okay, I don't see any more hands on this one. It's been moved and seconded. I will call the question. All those in favor? And opposed? I see none. The motion is carried. Thank you very much, and good discussion on that one. We can move along now to bylaws. The first bylaw tonight is the Town of Lake Cowichan Waste Regulation and Rates Bylaw, number 1063, 2021, may be reconsidered and adopted. Looking for a mover. Moved by Councillor Sandhu, seconded by Councillor Austin. Any further discussion on this bylaw before we adopt it? All those in favor? And opposed? Seeing none, the motion is carried. Thank you. Then we can move along to bylaw B, Town of Lake Couch and Water Regulations and Rates bylaw number 1064, 2021 may be reconsidered and adopted as well. Moved by Councillor Sandhu, thank you. Second by Councillor Bomaka. Any further discussion? And all those in favor? And opposed? Seeing none, motion carried. Thank you. C, Town of Lake Couch and Sewer Regulations and Rates bylaw number 1065, 2021 may be reconsidered and adopted. Moved by Councillor Austin, second by Councillor Sandhu. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None, motion carried. Thank you. D, Town of Lake Couch and Fees and Charges for Services bylaw number 1066, 2021 may be reconsidered and adopted. Moved by Councillor Bomaka, second by Councillor Sandhu. Any further discussion on that one? All those in favor? Opposed? None, motion carried. Thank you. That'll take us to the Town of Lake Couch and Intercommunity Business License bylaw number 1067, 2021 may be read first, second, and third time. Moved by Councillor Bomaka, second by Councillor McGonigal. And Mr. Fernandez.
Your worship, I think the Director of Finance can speak to that and just give you some clarification as to what this bylaw entails.
Yes, thank you very much. Go ahead, Ms. Gill.
Thank you, Your Worship. The bylaw has been basically just updated to include all of their participating municipalities, mainly to add some on South Island, and the increase in the fees from 150 to 170, and it was always been 170 in the other communities, so we're just playing catch up to get that fee up to what it should be. So those are the only changes to that bylaw, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Gill. So it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor and opposed? Seeing none, the motion is carried. Thank you. That'll move us along to new business. Notice of regular meetings of council for 2022. Pretty self-explanatory, but Mr. Fernandez, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, just the one item is the August meeting. There's no meetings in August unless you call a special meeting. So
Right.
that's the
So
only change.
everybody took note of that and they're okay there?
And the other item that you may not have noticed is the inaugural meeting date. It's also reflected there.
All right. Okay. So we need to move motion, correct? Motion
Yeah.
to adopt the notice of regular meetings of council for 2022. Moved by Councillor Bomaka, second by Councillor Austin. Any further discussion? All those in favor and opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the new business is letter to the Honorable Minister Conroy, Minister of Forest, Lands and Natural Resource Operations and Rural Development regarding concerns of community forests on changes within Bill 23 and 28 and the effect to our community. And Councillor McGonigal, would you like to speak to this?
I'll speak briefly. I think the letter is fairly self-explanatory. It raises concerns moving forward for not only Caliat, but all community forests within the province should changes be made to the tabular stumpage program that is currently set up within community forests. I think especially for the smaller ones, any changes that would negate the opportunity for profits within that will be detrimental to those community forests and the communities surrounding them. So we're just looking for a possibility of the minister to at least get this letter through her desk, and that there is some consideration for at least some dialogue on the possible changes that may come, and we're hoping that will not As you see by one of the bullets, the considerable contributions that have been made by the community forest. And we are a shareholder in that, in the implementation of the original community forest, along with the regional district and other areas. So I think we have a stake within what happens within the community forest. And I think it's important that we protect the entity and the viability and profitability for not only ourselves, but also for Patchadap First Nation, who is a partner in the Kalite. So my hope would be if council is okay that all our signatories go on the bottom of this, mayor and council, if you're so inclined, and today's date, and forwarded to the Honorable Minister Conroy for her consideration.
All right, thank you for that. And one of the points you made that, you know, we do have a role to play with this. We send a representative from council to this, so we have active membership and a part of the decision-making process there. So I'd look to council to give any input. Go ahead, Councillor Sandhu.
Well, I was just going to move this draft letter.
Be endorsed by mayor and council
Yes,
and forwarded to the minister.
yes.
Councillor McGonigal, is there any changes that says draft at the top? So are there any further items you want to add to that before it?
I believe if we just remove draft, add the signatories and the date, and then
The town letterhead?
if possible, or this letterhead would be suffice, whichever you decide. I think we are only one representative within that board, but it's totally up to this body as to what template you wish to send it in.
Go ahead, Councillor Austin.
I think it should be coming from the Forest Co-op, so it should have their letterhead on it. And if everyone wishes to sign it, then we can sign it at the bottom. At first, I didn't think this was something town council should be signing, but and looking at it and considering it and seeing some of the stuff on TV this evening, I do think it's really important that because it's part of our community, and I was on the Forest Co-op board for 12 years, so I was very connected to it, and so I would support this, but I do think it should come from the Forest Co-op with their letterhead. That's just me.
Councillor Sandhu.
Well, I was just going to say, I think if this is coming from, I think it should come from council. We're endorsing this, and that the town of Lake Howard should be the letterhead, not the Forest Co-op can do theirs. But I think it's important that we as a group have it under the town of Lake Howard letterhead.
Okay, so just for due process, it's been moved by Councillor Sandhu, and we go into commenting right away. So was there a seconder? Councillor Gomaka. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Austin.
Sorry, because this letter was written by the Forest Co-op, maybe we should do two letters. The Forest Co-op should send this letter and the town should send something similar, because this was written by the Forest Co-op, not by the town. That's why I thought it should be on the Forest Co-op letterhead. Right?
I get your reasoning there, Councillor McGonigal. Can you help us?
I
with some
think it will be
clarification?
coming from both bodies, but I would appreciate it coming from our letterhead as well. We did have, if I may just elaborate a bit, municipalities did have an opportunity for online input, which expired about 2 weeks ago. This is subsequent correspondence that could be considered after that timing. If it comes from both parties, perhaps there would be more appetite for dialogue moving forward. I would hope it would be endorsed moving forward on our letterhead with our signatories, and leave the Forest Co-op to do theirs as well, but that is totally up to you.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Gomaka.
Thank you. I am in agreement with Councillor Austin. I think it should be two separate letters, one coming from the Community Forest Co-op and a second letter from mayor and council from the town of Lake Cowichan endorsing it. That's just my thoughts. But we can also ask the CAO too, what direction he thinks we should take in our involvement.
Yeah, I think if council is signing that letter, it should be on the town's letter.
Okay. Will the wording in the Forest Co-op letter be different? Or is it going to be just a carbon copy of?
I believe like all letters we get from other municipalities, it'll be a template letter.
Right.
This will be a similar letter moved forward, should they
Right.
decide to do that.
Right.
But I agree with the CAO that it should be on our letterhead, yes. If we decide to endorse it.
Okay. Don't see any other hands in, so I'll call the question on the motion to endorse this letter on our letterhead from mayor and council and send it to the minister. All those in favor? And opposed? None. The motion is carried. Thank you very much for that. Okay, that moves us along to the added new business items. Okay, so community health services gap analysis. That was a topic that arose from our roundtable session we had with members of service groups from the Duncan area and the town of Lake Cowichan community services and the like. So I thought it was a great idea, but where I get a little bit muddled up is who does that? Who takes the lead on that? Is that something that council needs to endorse? Is it something that we meet again with those folks and look for a leader of that initiative? Or anyways, just a conversation starter on that part of the topic. And anybody have any thoughts? I know we wanted to have more discussion as a council on the topic that we discussed at that roundtable. And this particular part rose to the top of the list of priorities besides a homeless count and stuff like that. So just put it out there and for some discussion here tonight. Nothing needs to be decided tonight, just maybe some guidance on what our next step as a council would be during this with this topic. Go ahead, Councillor Sandhu.
I'm just wondering, in our January strategic planning, or committee of the whole or whatnot, could we just have a time frame of just speaking on this, like nothing else on the agenda, so we could just kind of focus on it?
Mhm.
And that's kind of what I'm thinking. We, as a starting point as council, because when we put things into an agenda that's kind of got a lot of other items, it gets shortened, it gets kind of pushed to the side. And I just think we need to, it's like a planning session. We need to have that roundtable discussion just on one item. And I think we can get some good discussion out of that, but not when we've got a full agenda. I think it just gets kind of misled.
Yeah. And would we all be on the same page that it should just, if we're just going to discuss the broad issue, I mean, the gap analysis is just something to throw on this agenda to get everybody's attention and start a conversation. So that's a great suggestion that we do that. I'm also thinking that after we discuss it in January, maybe we call another roundtable and make sure everybody's included after we discuss it a bit more. It's not something that we can solve overnight. If everybody's okay with Councillor Sandhu's suggestion, then I'll make a special note of that. Okay, and when it comes to housing the unhoused, that was part of the topic that we hope to discuss. And I know we can't go into any detail because we don't have any houses and we don't know where we would put them at this time. But there is the request of some members of council, a tour been organized of the Ramada site on January 12th at 2 p.m. So far, that's the date that we received answers back in for consensus as a day and time. Councilor McGonigal.
So I think until that time that we make the tour, that perhaps this should reside in the background until we've had that tour, and then reconvene with the group that had that discussion once we've identified whatever questions we have that may need clarification through a Couch and Housing Association or the Ministry of Health or whoever on some of the questions. We're going to identify some other questions in the health gap analysis where those gaps can be filled, whether it's locally or within the center of the Cowichan Regional District. So until we have all that information, I think it's important just to step back and have that trip, have a look, and perhaps with the assistance of Couch and Housing, a tour of perhaps some of those sleeping cabins was a possibility, not just the Ramada. So I think that is important because that was identified within the application, grant application, as an option for Lake Cowichan and for Ladysmith. So until then, until we've had that tour, I'm not prepared to make a decision. And I know there was no decision tonight, but let's do that and then come back and maybe piggyback that meeting that in January on the gap analysis with the housing question too. So there's two topics that we could devote however long it takes to look at what possibilities might be.
Yes, and I have a question for members of council on this too. Would it be helpful if we had somebody from Cowichan Housing, from Cindy Lisi, to help guide that conversation, or are we just going to do the best we can by ourselves at this time?
Well, I think we reconvene after the tours with that group, the initial group, and rehash some of the things that we've seen or asked for clarification. So that same group that came together in the initial one should be reconvened in my view, but also bring in Island Health with some representation, whoever that might be, on identifying the gap analysis and where some possible anecdotes are, or you know what I mean?
Got it. No, I got it. So Councillor Sandhu, does that fit into what you were thinking? You made the suggestion to start with, so good. Okay. All right. So the next item then we had was meeting format, virtual or in person. What does everybody think? Should we extend our virtual meetings for another month and then keep on looking a month out? Councillor McGonigal.
Well, given the latest restrictions, I think it's important that we remain virtual for the foreseeable future until either boosters have helped for those who consider boosters for the Omicron variant, that we remain in virtual entity for at least 2 months into the new year, and then reconsider at the end of February as to what new restrictions have come forward. There's 50% capacity now. There's limits in restaurants to a number of 6, no table hopping. So until something else happens, I think we need to continue virtually. Unfortunately, because we all hate Hollywood Squares. Every time you move, someone is in the other corner. See, I'm pointing. But I would feel more comfortable virtually.
I've just figured out my lighting almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to give Councillor Vomaka a lighting tip one day when I come to visit. Oh, and Miss Gill for her home office. Anyways, okay, so I just had a brief discussion with the CAO today on how best to handle this, and if we could consider what you just said, Councillor McGonigal, as a motion to carry on.
I will move
virtually.
that we carry on virtually till the end of February to be reanalyzed then.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Vomaka. Any further discussion? All those in favor? None opposed? None. The motion carries. Thank you very much for that. Okay. That can move us along to the mayor's report. Yeah. Okay. So the mayor's report for December 2021. Here we are nearing the end of another year. Given all the events of the past 12 months, I would have to agree with what they say. The only thing we can be certain of is that we are all another year older.
Thanks.
As I reflect back on this year, that was the first thing that comes, let me start. As I reflect back on this year, the year that was, the first thing that comes to my mind are those who are no longer with us. I would like to send out my warmest holiday wishes to those who have lost loved ones, and this will be their first Christmas without them. I say to you, peace be with you. The next thought I have is how fortunate the town of Lake Cowichan and the surrounding area have been not to have suffered the terrible disasters other communities around the province have suffered due to fires or flooding. We need all to be thankful that we did not have to endure the hardships caused by those events, and at the same time, not become complacent, thinking that these types of things won't happen in our area. The next thing I think about is how the town of Lake Cowichan, which throughout the COVID pandemic remains a thriving community experiencing growth and renewal that we have not seen for decades. This would be a testament to the many good decisions made by local government in the past up to today and the willingness of the community to invest in itself. This is also a testament to all the good staff that manage your property tax dollars responsibly so that mayor and council are able to authorize the projects necessary to maintain and enhance your community. This is not a simple mandate, but one that takes years of planning ahead to achieve the objectives. There is also a group of people who keep our sewer and water systems running safely, as well as maintain our roadways and sidewalks as good as possible within a tight budget. To everyone mentioned above and all the valuable support staff in each department, thank you. To members of council, I must say thank you for all your work and support over the past year. The work we do can be challenging, but that's what we sign up for when we put our names forward as community leaders. That being said, there is nothing more satisfying knowing inside that the decisions we make and the work of staff collectively make our community a better place to live in on an ongoing basis. The smallest projects can add significant value to the day-to-day lives of our residents in the town of Lake Cowichan. I would like to thank the members of the Advisory Planning Commission and all the volunteer organizations for all the work put forward over the past year that makes our town so unique and special. Finally, I would like to wish the entire community all the best of the holiday season and a happy and healthy new year. And I emphasize healthy. Yeah. I can't tell you, just as a side note, folks, that it just not a day goes by when I don't hear another story of somebody that's got a life-threatening disease. And it's just, yeah, it's all around us. And I feel for those folks and just wish everybody health. So thank you very much. All right, that can move us along to notices of motion. We have none. And I see we just got an in-camera meeting agenda sent or invite sent to us. So question period, maximum of 3 minutes per speaker and a maximum time allotted of 15 minutes in the process. So members of the public out there, if you're watching with us tonight, please dial in to 250-749-6681, extension 102, if you'd like to phone in your question now, or you can email your question to general@lakecowichan.ca. That's general@lakecowichan.ca now or at any time, actually, you wish to have a question answered. Once again, before we break for 3 minutes, 250-749-6681, extension 102 is the number to dial now. to ask a question. We'll reconvene at 7:36. See you then. Okay, it's 7:36. Mr. Fernandez.
Worship, there are no phone calls or emails.
Okay. So then we can exit that process and go to number 13 in camera, Mr. Fernandez.
Yeah, section 92 of the community charter requires that before a meeting or part of a meeting is closed to the public, council must state by resolution why the meeting is to be closed. And the basis on which the meeting is to be closed falls under the following sections of the community charter. Section 91C, dealing with labor relations or other employee relations, and section 91F on matters dealing with law enforcement and bylaws.
All right, thank you very much. Motion to go in camera, please. Moved by Councilor Vomakis, seconded by Councilor McGonigal. Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed, motion carried. So we just did receive a new invite, so we can exit this meeting and come back on the other invite. All right, see you shortly, everyone.
Good night.